Coach, you frequently talk about the game in a game. This week, you obviously have their wide receiving core against your defense, and then your wide receiving core against their defense. What's more critical to a win today or on Sunday?
I think playing a team game. I think we got to play a team game against this group. I think they're really good. They've got a lot of good players. You mentioned offensively. I think what makes them such a challenging cover is they're deep in all levels of their offense. You start with their offensive line. That group has played a lot of ball together. And I feel like them getting Zach Martin back. He's one of the elite players in the league. Him and Tyron Smith are two of the elite alignment of the last decade. So you kind of start there with their foundation, and then you go to their runner, who's one of the top 2 to 5 runners in the league. Zeke's a complete back. He's one of the best backs that I've played against. And then they've got a really deep receiving core. I mean, CD, Amari, I know Gallup's not playing, but he's fantastic as well. Wilson's come in and done a nice job. And then last year when we played him, I had a lot of respect for Jarwin going into the game. And he's got real speed, and he got hurt in our game last year, so he didn't really get to play last season. But going into that game, I had a lot of respect for him. And then Schultz came in and I think did a nice job for that team last year, and now they're playing together a lot. So, and then you finish with their quarterback. When you got a quarterback like Dak Prescott, his resume speaks for itself, and I think the value of Dak Prescott really expressed itself last season when they didn't have him. After our game, I think he went like 400, 500 or something like that, and he certainly got off to a great start this year. Just shows you his toughness, his leadership ability, and then his playmaking ability, his talent. So they're a very complete offense, and we're going to have a really good week of practice.
And how much of a
Will Brian Waller practice today?
He will not practice today.
With Dak coming up that huge injury, we might not have known what to expect this year. Then we watched him on Hard Knocks, and he got hurt again, and we maybe still were a little uncertain. And then you saw what he did against Tampa. How did you take that all in?
I mean, I followed this guy since Mississippi State, and they were number 1 in the country at Mississippi State in the SEC West with this guy. And so this guy's been a proven guy for a long time. And I think since he's played for the Cowboys, their record speaks for itself, with him as the quarterback and their production. I mean, the year before, last year, going into last year, they were, I think, number 1 in the NFL in total offense. The year before when I was with the Rams, and then you saw they were leading the NFL in offense through 4 or 5 weeks, and then he got hurt. And then he lit it up, week 1 against the defending Super Bowl champion against the defense that's really, really good. So his track record speaks for itself, and he's a guy that was very worthy of that contract, and he's an elite competitor. So we're excited to be able to face him this week.
How much of a chess match are you expecting pre-snap going up against Dak, a guy who obviously sees the field really well pre-snap?
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, it's a big chess match because their line's seen a lot too. Their line's outstanding as well. When you have Tyron and Zach who have seen so much, I feel like that's a winning edge for them too. And Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore, those guys are 2 premium offensive coaches in this league. So they've got a really good offensive team, and a big part of it is matchups. And we got to play a complementary game defensively because they can hurt you in a lot of different ways. It's not like you go into a game plan against this team saying, hey, well, pass, run, whatever. I mean, they can beat you a lot of different ways. So when you're playing against a complete offense, you got to play complete defense, and not only complete defense, but you got to play a complete game as a team offensively and in the kicking game. So, we'll see where it goes this week.
Coach, can you talk a little bit just about the defense as far as them primarily being able to stop the run? You saw what they did last week against Tampa. Together wasn't really effective, but how do you see him bouncing back this week and making it difficult for you guys?
Yeah, Zeke, I just got so much respect for this guy. This guy's one of the most complete backs in the league because he's an incredible runner. He's got balanced body control, vision. He plays with great pace. He's really good on contact. He's got outstanding hands out of the backfield. He's a very, very good pass protector. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. That's a big part of his game. He's really physical in pass protection. He's smart. So this guy's as good as it gets. And so I truly felt like in week 1 that game plan was just a reflection of how Tampa was playing him. If they weren't playing him that way, then I'm sure he would have had a really healthy dose of touches. And I think it just goes to show you how dangerous they are, that Zeke Elliott wasn't a productive factor running the ball, but then they still put up, the amount of yards that they did. So they're just a very dangerous team, and I don't think Zeke gets enough credit for how he played in that game. I mean, that's a really, really good rush that they're playing against. And for Dak to throw for that many yards, Zeke had a big hand in making that happen.
Brandon, do you expect Justin Jones to practice today?
Justin Jones is going to be limited today.
Brian, with Michael Davis, his first time playing in your system as a number one cornerback, how do you think he performed last week, and what can he do better for this big matchup with a bunch of weapons as well?
Yeah, big opportunity last week. As you guys know, I had a lot of respect for Terry McLaurin. I have a lot of respect for that group of receivers. I feel like, we'll see how they play tomorrow night, but I think that team's going to have a good year. I think it was a good first game for Vato. There was some really good. There was some reps that I think from a technical standpoint he can get better at for sure. But I think that he went nose to nose with those guys at a high level. And I think that if you talk to him, he knows that he can play a lot better, which is exciting. But we're pleased with where his progress is. And he's diving into his game every day. And I think his physical talents will continue to show the more that he works at his game overall from a mental standpoint, from a technique standpoint. But we're real pleased. This guy's got real toughness, Mike Davis. He's got real toughness, and I expect him to continue to improve.
With the Cowboys defense, what are you expecting schematically from Dan? Obviously a guy who's from that Seattle tree, but Justin said that there's not a lot of carryover from what they were doing last year.
Yeah, Daniel. Number one, I have a ton of respect for Dan Quinn as a coach. Everyone's aware that this guy's a Super Bowl coach, and he was a Super Bowl champion as a defensive coordinator in Seattle. So this guy is a really, really good coach, and I think it's kind of be a blend of his background, and I've got a ton of respect for Joe Witt Jr., the passing game coordinator there, and George Edwards is there, so who's been a defensive coordinator in this league. So I think it'll be a blend of all that, and they're going to try and, I know that, when you're brand new, you're trying to figure out your pieces and getting them where you want them and stuff like that. So I think that what definitely expressed itself in the first game is they're going to play hard, and that's a staple of Dan Quinn, is they're going to play really hard, and I think that they're talented. They've got a lot of players on that group, and they're at the beginning, so they're trying to get it together just like we are. But I expect a team that plays really, really tough. They got they won the takeaway battle in the first game, which gave them a real chance in that game, and that's always been a hallmark of a Dan Quinn operation is hunting the football. So that showed up in the first game too.
How's the feeling to get up, to be 1-0, just to kick off the season in the right way? And that's, we talked about that has been a problem with this team in previous years, and to get your first win out of the way as well.
I felt like it was good to get into a routine of game week, and then it was our first time traveling together in the context of a game week, East Coast trip and stuff like that. So from an operational standpoint, I think it was good to just go through that together, leaving Saturday, waking up early, doing that whole thing. After the game, kind of learning, hey, how that plane trip home is going to be, and what that rhythm is going to look like. So I felt like it was good to kind of get that, underway. And then in terms of the game, I think that what you got to be able to do in first games is you got to get better as the game goes on. And I think that that's what we did. I know that we started fast on both sides of the ball, but then in that middle area, it was a real fight, and we kind of lost some of the momentum. And then what you got to be able to do is in the fourth quarter, you got to make the adjustments at the end of the game in all three phases to be able to finish the game playing your best, even when in that middle ground you may not have played perfectly or the way you'd want. And I felt like in the fourth quarter we made some good adjustments and then finished the game playing our best ball. So I felt like it was just a hard-fought win, and most of the time when you go on the road against a really good team, that's how it's going to be. And so I felt like that was the positive coming out of it.
Do you feel like the mistakes that were made on Sunday can be fixed this week during practice? Oh,
for sure, for sure, Fernando. You kind of hear, you guys you're aware of that game, like between game 1 and game 2, you make your biggest jump and all that. And I think you make a big jump every week, guys. I really do, because you learn so much. Like out there on the walkthrough, we're so much better than we were on Sunday, guys, because we had so much to learn from, and and then there's going to be a million things that come up this week that to get better at. But I think that when you are brand new with systems, the more you experience, the more you know how to fix your problems, and the quicker you get to fix them. So I felt like that was a good thing coming out of the game, is there wasn't a lot that happened that our guys weren't like, hey, that's how I fix it, or and I felt like we had pretty good response time that way. And then what's going to happen as you go is now we're playing against different teams. Like Dallas's defense is different than Washington's. Dallas's offense is different than Washington's. So now now I play against this style, and this is how we want to play. And so it's just such an ongoing thing.
How much of a benefit is it to have Ronaldo Hill up in the booth, looking down and basically calling things out for you?
Oh, our Hill, this guy is so steady, guys. This guy is a cool customer. That Stuart Scott quote, as cool as the other side of the pillow, like that's our Hill. And that's why he was such a good player. And Tommy Donatel's up there, and he's a G up there. They just have such good field vision, and it's so comforting for us on the field because they can fix a lot of problems up there. And they have a lot of awareness of personnel, and they can spot some things that sometimes your sight line on the field may not be as good, your vantage point. And so I felt like the other winning edge for me personally is that it allows me to be a head coach. And not, hey, I'm over here with the defense every second, and I can be current with the game management side of things and special teams and the offense. And I felt like I could be my best self because Ronaldo Hill is our defensive coordinator, and he's making some big adjustments for us so that I can go be, with Joe and Darius and our kicking game.
We're interested in rush for 20 yards on Sunday, but you had 29 attempts, I think it was. Being able to rush that many times, how does that help? And were you okay with the balance, or would you rather be more 50-50, or how do you?
I really love the balance. I love our run game plan. Anytime you play against a premium front in this league, it's going to be difficult to run it. Okay, it is. And I think what doesn't show up on the stat sheet, because we had 29 for 90, but we had a couple RPOs and we had a couple quick throws from under center that's an extension of your run game. And if you kind of factored in those throws to your run game, I think you would look at the run game even with more positivity, because that's kind of an extension of the run game. You have a run called, and then now you're able to throw it out there based on the look, and we did that a couple times in the game. But just from a pure run standpoint, I felt like our tracks were good. I felt like our O-line came off the ball with velocity, and our tight ends and fullbacks came off the ball with velocity, which is what we were hoping to do. And then we were ball secure. And so I felt like that's a really talented front that we're playing against, and a really good linebacking core, and two safeties from Washington that are outstanding tacklers. Curl and Landon Collins are outstanding run support safeties. So we're off to a good start, but there's always so much more room to improve.
There were a couple cases Sunday where incomplete ended up being called as fumbles. It looked like it was called pretty consistent throughout the league on Sunday in those situations. Did you email, or the staff email New York just on clarification and the consistency? Because there are a couple former referees that are now replay officials in New York.
Yeah, we try to do that, unpack every game so that we can learn from it. Like all the penalties that happen, some of the rulings, to get a better sense of our strategies moving forward. And so I'm finding, now with the way they're doing it, like, hey, your process with challenging, that communication process. And so, I think that we're going to try and do the best we can to educate our players, and as coaches understand the rhythm and timing of how they're officiating things and how they're reviewing things, and keep going as they go. Because I think that we're still learning as we go with the new system. And so all the clarification we can get benefits us.
How was communication with the booth on Sunday? Because it looked like you were going to challenge one play and throw the flag out. And then quickly.
Yeah, the one specifically was Fitzpatrick's backwards pass, which I felt like was a backwards pass, when Chenna had the nice hit on him. And so I felt like it was in the first half, so I felt like it was a worthy challenge, just to get it out there. It was kind of one of those, hey, we don't know, but hey, this is probably worthy to challenge it, to take a look at it. And then what ended up happening was New York ended up talking to Alex Kemp, and then he kind of said, hey, we've already ruled on this, we can pick it up. So that was kind of what happened in that sequence.
Do you like that the new facet of having a referee that's looking at the replays in live time, so you don't have to challenge as much, or do you prefer what it was previously?
I think I hate being in the middle, but I feel like I need to experience more to truly make my mind up about it. I think I'm just so new. I still think I need to have a little bit more experiences before I can make a ruling on that.
It's a new team with you and Smash, and just kind of working those kinks out with what to challenge and whatnot.
Those guys were awesome up there, and then they were awesome like fourth down, just situational stuff. I felt like we were able to really triangulate with Joe, and he was able to call like the game that he wanted to call because he had a lot of certainty where I was coming from, and I felt like, obviously so many things to improve on, but I felt like we were proud of our process, and I felt like I said, situationally, I was disappointed the way before the half, us giving up the field goal with the penalty and then just allowing a loose play scramble to get out of bounds. I could have been in a better coverage there for sure. That could protect the sideline more deny the ball outside. So that was my mistake, and I'll be better moving forward.
What do you think Larry Roundtree brought to the team on Sunday?
This guy brought real physicality. He's just a different style back, but Austin is really good at breaking tackles. His dimensions are different. Austin's not a big guy, but he's really, really strong. Where Larry's a bigger guy, but he's really, really strong. He's heavier. He's a heavier back. And then I thought that Larry did a nice job in the kicking game as well. And it just gives us, you got to have guys. Your third back's got to be a factor in the kicking game. And so I feel like Larry's really coming on. He's still at the beginning, but he's really not. We're trying to, best we can for this guy to become a complete back, and not just as a running back, but as a football player.
You speak very highly of Ezekiel, and at least statistically, his production is not what it might have been just a few years ago. Does he still capture your attention like he might have 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes, he has my full attention. I have full respect for this back, and my eyes tell me that this guy is a top 2 to 5 back in this league. And playing against him last year, what was unique is I could hear everything last year. There was no crowd, so I could hear the sound of every tackle. And I remember going home and watching the TV copy with my wife. It was late, and she stayed up, and we watched it, and you could hear it. You could hear the pads popping, and he's a physical guy. And, I've got full respect for him and what he's accomplished in this league. And I still think he's a premium back.
Coach, will you talk about the relationship between Corey and Justin and how you saw that kind of manifest itself on the field throughout Sunday?
Yeah, I felt like operationally, we had a clean operation pre-snap. You go on the road for the first time and didn't have any procedure penalties, didn't have any, hey, 12 in the huddle, late, got to burn a timeout, didn't have any of those things, which is a credit to, Joe, Justin. Joe kind of came out one time, like his, the earpiece kind of went out one time, and Justin kind of fixed the problem and kind of called the play, got us in and out, which I thought was a great sign. And so those two guys, talking through the protection plan and mixing it up from a cadence standpoint, were able to, draw a couple offsides penalties, which I thought was critical, and Corey plays a big role in that. So, like I said, those guys teaming up is a big advantage for us.
Austin didn't have a target in the game.
Yeah.
Is that just a function of how successful you guys were throwing the ball downfield, or is that something you'd like to maybe get him a little more involved in the passing game moving forward? Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely a weapon in the passing game. We had a couple things up for him that didn't get called, and then I think that when we were in some of our stuff where he was split out, the ball just went other places, but. That's a big part of our offense, is getting him activated in the passing game, whether it's from the backfield, split out, or in the screen game. And so, just excited to see how that expresses itself as the weeks go on. But he's definitely an asset for us for sure.
Brandon, for what you guys, or for what you're trying to accomplish defensively, I know you guys use more lighter boxes than probably most teams do. But I guess when you have a player like Derwin James, how does that allow you guys to kind of do what you do up front?
Well, I think what Derwin allows you to do is it forces offense from an identification standpoint to locate where he's at, to determine how they're going to identify this particular structure. And I think that's an advantage where you're forcing them to kind of exert mental energy every snap to, number one, locate him, but then how does that fit into what I'm looking at? So I think that gives us an advantage. I think them having to identify him as a rusher, possibly a known rusher, affects some things. And then when we can put him all the different places we put him, sometimes it helps the other guys too. It helps their production because you're able to play with more premium looks. So he's the rare chess piece that you hope for to get to coach someday. And I thought he was outstanding in his first performance, and not just from a playing standpoint, but his leadership and his ability to be a signal caller, get us in the right adjustments, steady our group in that middle block where we were not, the game was we were fighting hard, and he was able to keep us steady. And then in that fourth quarter, he really brought us home defensively. So I thought he had an outstanding first game.
know that, you're pretty particular about what you say too, and apologies might be every day, but you use the phrase express yourself when you're talking about players a lot. I guess why do you use that phrase specifically?
Just because I think there really is an artistic nature to what is happening out there, and sometimes whether it's how a route expresses itself, right? We kind of say like, hey, like this is it's unveiling, right? As it's revealing itself as the play is going on there. So what I try to do that word, what it does to the players is, hey, we have to unpack this. Like it's not a black and white. Like it's not black and white. When something is expressing like, hey, we have to deal in the gray, And so that language I kind of use for defensive football or offensive football. That's the reason why I use it. And then expressing yourself within the defense is like, hey, letting your game shine within what we're doing and being able to play your game with what we do in all three phases of the game. So I like that phrase because as a player, you feel like you can be you and you can put your personality, your flavor to this movie. I think that's really important. Otherwise, they kind of feel like you're putting the shackles on their game and I'm just playing a part in the movie instead of like, no, I'm starring in this movie, And so that's why I do that.
Nas will practice today.
Nas is going to be questionable today. He was in the walkthrough. He's questionable for today.
The division went 4-0 in week 1. Thoughts on how that all played out?
I can't really speak on that because I haven't really seen those games, but I know that all three of these teams in our division are really good. It was like where I was last year. I know that they got really good coaches. All three of them have quarterbacks. All three of them have improved a lot defensively. There's a lot of firepower in this division. Offense, a lot of people talk about the offenses, but defensively, there are a lot of star players too, in these four teams. So it's a competitive division that's well coached, and I'm not surprised at all by that.